Good morning students. In this video we will discuss about ecological factors. So what are ecological factors? The constituents of environment which directly or indirectly influence the living organisms is called ecological factors or environmental factors. Ecological or environmental factors are two types: abiotic factors and biotic factors. Abiotic and biotic factors. Abiotic factors usually they help in growth and reproduction, and abiotic factors usually helps in physiological functions. They helps in form, they helps in morphology and all this. And abiotic factors are usually they are different types. Out of them, the four major abiotic factors. The four major abiotic factors are temperature, water, light and soil. So these are the four major abiotic factors. So all these factors discuss one by one. First important abiotic factor, that is temperature. So temperature or degree of hotness. Temperature is also called degree of hotness or degree of coolness. Degree of hotness or degree of coolness is the most important relevant environmental factor. Temperature range varies seasonally, and the range of temperature is sub-zero level in polar region to more than 50 degrees Celsius in tropical deserts in summers. And there are, however, some unique habitats like thermal springs and deep sea hydrothermal vents where normal temperature exceeds more than 100 degrees Celsius. There are some unique habitats where temperature goes very high, but otherwise the range of temperature from sub-zero level to more than 50 degrees Celsius. And the range of temperature also decreases from equator to polar regions. This temperature influence not only physiological characters, but also it influences the geographical distribution of various plants and animals. For example, mango trees do not and cannot grow in temperate countries like Germany and Canada. Means they are fixed in proper, certain and narrow range of temperatures. One more example, that is snow leopard. And snow leopard, it is not found in tropical forests in Kerala. It also requires a narrow range of temperature. And one more example is tuna fish. It is rarely caught beyond at latitudes of tropical altitudes of ocean. His organisms require a certain range of temperatures. It means temperature also influences the geographical distribution of various plants and animals. And this temperature has effect on working of enzymes. Through enzymes, temperature also influences the basal metabolism activity and various physiological characters of living organisms. And temperature of any place depends on its topography, altitude, latitude, slope, vegetation, humidity, etc. All these characters determines the temperature of a place. If they are suitable or they are favorable, and the range of temperature is optimum. If they are low or high, then the temperature goes in extreme conditions. And depending on range of temperature or temperature of a place, usually the regions are classified into various types. Some regions are called tropical regions, some regions are called subtropical regions, some regions are called temperate regions, and some regions are called arctic regions. Organisms are usually they can live in all these types of regions, and organisms of tropical regions, they are called megatherms, and organisms of subtropical regions are called microtherms, and organisms of temperate regions, they are called mesotherms, and organisms of arctic regions, they are called hecistotherms. Depending on their region, and organisms are called various types: megatherms, microtherms, mesotherms, and hecistotherms. On the basis of their ability, on the basis of ability of organisms to tolerate variations in temperature, on the basis of ability to tolerate temperature variations, organisms are usually classified into two types. Some organisms are called eurythermal organisms, and some organisms are called stenothermal organisms. Eurythermal and stenothermal organisms. Eurythermal organism, they can tolerate a wide range of temperatures. Examples: mammals, birds, and etc. And stenothermal organisms, they can tolerate a narrow range of temperatures. Best example is polar bear. And plants of both hot and cold regions, they possesses adaptations for transpiration. Transpiration means loss of water in the form of water. So for conservation of water, they possesses some of the adaptations like presence of tannins, or presence of thick cuticle, and presence of thick covering, all this. And organisms or animals also, they have some adaptations to cope up with their conditions. And there are here, we'll look at some of the important rules. And the first rule is Gloger's rule. And this rule states that the organisms of warm region have thick pigmentation than those of relatives. Organisms of colder regions have thin pigmentation, but organisms of warm region have thick pigmentation, and this rule is called Gloger's rule. And second rule is Bergmann's rule. And this rule states that the warm-blooded organisms of colder regions usually larger than warm-blooded organisms of warmer region. Gloger's rule states that the organisms of warmer region, they develop thick pigmentation than those of their relatives. Bergmann's rule states that organisms of warm-blooded organisms of colder region are larger than warm-blooded organisms of warmer region. Next rule is Allen's rule, and this rule states that extremites of mammals of colder region. Extremites of mammals of colder regions usually shorter than their relatives. Next one is Rand's rule. The fish of colder region usually smaller than fish of warmer region. Last one is Jordan's rule. This rule states that the fish of colder region have more vertebrae than their relatives. These are the some of the rules which states some of the important points with respect to organisms live in different range of temperatures. So this is the first abiotic major abiotic factor. And second major abiotic factor, the second major abiotic factor, that is water. Next to temperature, water is most important environmental factor which influence life of the organisms. Usually life originated in water. Even now life is unsustainable without water. Life is unsustainable without water. And the production and distribution of terrestrial plants. So the production and distribution of terrestrial plants depends on availability of water. Terrestrial plants and water availability. Terrestrial plants, water availability. So on the basis of availability of water, terrestrial plants are usually classified into three types: hygrophytes, mesophytes, and xerophytes. Hygrophytes are plants of wet conditions. Plants of wet conditions called hygrophytes. Hygrophytes usually possesses thin stems, thin leaves, and usually they are present in wet conditions. One example of hygrophytes is rumex. Next, mesophytes. So plants of land condition. Plants of land conditions are called mesophytes, and examples for mesophytes all vegetable and fruit plants. And xerophytes, plants of dry conditions. Plants of dry conditions are called xerophytes. They possess thick stems, and some of the one important example is opuntia. So based on the availability of water, terrestrial plants are divided into three types: hygrophytes, mesophytes, and xerophytes. Next, terrestrial animals and water availability. Terrestrial animals and water availability. Terrestrial animals and water availability. So usually terrestrial animals obtain water from two sources. What are the two sources? Food and water bodies. Food and water bodies are the two sources for water of terrestrial animals. But animals of desert conditions or animals of xeric conditions, usually in desert conditions there are lot of water scarcity. For that, many desert animals, they eat only seeds. For example, kangaroo rat. Kangaroo rat usually that eat only seeds, and seed also contain 10 to 15% of water. And these desert animals, they conserve water in various methods. For example, one of that, they produce usually solid urine, and they also produce solid feces. And these are the various methods to conserve water in case of desert conditions. And generally water is abundant in case of aquatic conditions. And the plants of aquatic conditions are called hydrophytes. The hydrophytes it possesses a special tissue that is called parenchyma, and parenchyma usually it gives support in water bodies. And these hydrophytes usually present in aquatic conditions, and some of the organisms which are present in rivers and estuaries, they obtain food from organic materials which are coming out from water bodies. The organisms which are present in ponds and lakes, they obtain food from producers, because the growth of producers in ponds and growth is very, very effective. and some organisms usually live in freshwater conditions. In freshwater conditions, the organisms which are grown freshwater conditions, they have a problem. That is excess internal water. The excess internal water of freshwater organisms, that is due to endosmosis. Endosmosis means osmotic entry of water into a body. And some organisms which are live in saline conditions, they also have a problem, that is they have very low internal water, that is due to exosmosis. Exosmosis means the osmotic exit of water from the body. And some of the organisms, they secrete high concentration of saline which obtained from outside the body. And we might think that organisms which are live in oceans, rivers, ponds, lakes, estuaries, they should not face any any water related problems, but that is not true, because for aquatic organisms the quality of water becomes important, and the salt concentration should be 5 per 1000 parts in inland waters. In inland waters, the concentration of salt should be 5 per 1000 parts, and it is 30 to 35 per 1000 parts in case of sea. And it is 100 per 1000 parts in case of hypersaline lagoons. And depending on their ability to tolerate salt concentration or saline concentration, these aquatic organisms are also divided into two types: euryhaline and stenohaline. Euryhaline means the organisms, they can tolerate a wide range of salinity. Example salmon. And stenohaline, they can tolerate a narrow range of salinity. Example shark. So this is the second important abiotic factor.